Marco, thank you for your time today. We're going to be talking a fair bit about property investment, co-living properties, and a lot of hopefully interesting things. But before we get stuck into all of those items, do you want to give me and the people listening an understanding of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for asking. Look, I've been in the property market probably a little bit over 20 years, both at a personal level and business level. So I've helped multiple clients, multiple investors over the years, either from purchasing their initial property to expanding their property portfolio from 8, 10, 15 property. Currently, I am an investment consultant with the Harmony Group.
You know, what sort of numbers you would be achieving in terms of that sort of rental?
Yeah, definitely. Look, on average, we see rental return for a co-living home to come in around $1,500 to $2,000 a week, with an average cash flow of probably $350 plus. Again, this is almost impossible to achieve with a traditional property. Property managers are also willing to provide a rental guarantee. So a rental guarantee, what it basically does, it guarantees the landlord that no matter if the property is going to be tenanted or not, either you have 3 tenants or 5, the landlord will receive the income based on the particular guarantee. Okay, so that is available. So what that does, Yannick, it shows very strong confidence in the market, because if a property manager is willing to give away their own money, is because they're fairly comfortable that that property is going to be tenanted.
Right, understood. Regarding the demand and the tenants and what they pay, it still leaves me with a few questions though.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got 5 bedrooms, potentially more, but let's just assume 5 bedrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand every tenant's going to have their private space where they can retreat and be by themselves, but they're still going to be sharing, the main kitchen, and they're going to be sharing potentially some living space. They might have to, organize themselves around car parks and other things.
Yep.
How do you go about making sure that there's, pun intended, harmonious sort of living and sort of momentum between all of these people?
We only work with top-tier co-living property manager. They specialize in co-living home. That's what they do. They've been managing co-living for the last 10 to 15 years. So it is important to use a company that specializes in that. So we certainly don't recommend to have a traditional property manager managing a co-living space. Because a co-living space does require a little bit more attention than a single-family home with a single tenant. Ultimately, the home will have a set of rules where the tenant will have to comply with. When it comes down to the lease agreement, each tenant has their own individual lease agreement that they need to comply with. But when it comes down to the mix of tenant, that is extremely important. That's almost just as important as finding the right home at the right price with the right cash flow. So what we want to make sure, when I mean the right mix of tenants, is that we want to make sure that we try to match as much as we can the personality of each tenant living within the property. So if we put in a tradie in one room, we may put in a nurse in the other one, then we may put in a student or a teacher. Again, we want to make sure that these people will live together and share a common area, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we limit any friction to the benefit of our investors. Okay? So, and I think that is the most important thing when it comes down to doing it yourself or using a company like us. Ultimately, we have the knowledge, the expertise, the relationship with experienced co-living manager to be able to identify the tenant mix early on.
We've seen the fads and the trends in property come and go, and people are left with properties that were going to be the next big thing, and then it never happened. We saw that in the mining towns, 10 years ago. We saw that with the assisted sort of the government schemes in the past. We've seen all sorts of things come and go. Do you see co-living as something that is going to last and survive the test of time? Mm-hmm. Or do you think this is just the latest sort of trend and it's gonna disappear like some of the others in the past? Where do you see that co-living market going?
Good question. Thanks for asking that. Look, I would like to emphasize that with today rental market, co-living, it is a win-win situation for both the tenants and the investor. Because the reality is vacancy rate is extremely low. We have more tenants than actual property available. Co-living right now, it is actually the fastest growing high yield property investment in Australia. The Australian Bureau of Statistics, ABS, actually is estimating that by 2041, 65% of the rental population will be single household, outpacing family growth. So what that is showing us that co-living, what it creates a core market for co-living home. Vacancy rate, again, are extremely low nationally, 1.3%, 0% in Victoria. So the demand is extremely high. So that leads us to believe that co-living will continue to grow. Cost of living is high. So co-living creates, again, that space where it makes it more affordable even for a tenant to rent, basically. So I strongly believe that, yes, co-living is easier to stay.
All right, Marco, let's assume that you've convinced me and I've purchased a co-living property and it's going great. In 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years' time, my circumstances change, whatever that change might be, and I need or I want to sell my co-living property. It's not a traditional property per se. Is that going to affect my exit strategy or the liquidity of the property? Like, how does that work on the way out?
Absolutely. Look, every co-living home, it is built with flexibility in mind to allow for an easy exit strategy. Ultimately, the way that we want to look at a co-living home, it is a standard home with a 5-bedroom, 5-ensuite. So when it comes down to resell the property, well, that property will appeal to another investor like yourself, looking for a great rental return. But that doesn't mean that we cannot sell it to a traditional family home. So ultimately, it is, from the outside, it looks like just a traditional home. You will have 5-bedroom with 5-ensuite, so it would also appeal to a family home. But the reality is, most likely, an investor will be the one catching on it.
Could you take me through the main difference between a co-living property and a roaming house?
Yep, definitely. Look, the concept is different, but the setup and the rental return, it is extremely different. So a rooming house, most likely, it's an older home that is being converted from a traditional residence into a shared accommodation. So you will have possibly 4, 5-bedroom, 5 different people, 5 different tenants sharing not only the kitchen and the living area, but most likely also the bathroom. Okay. A brand new co-living home, it is a home that has been built for the purpose of co-living spaces, where each bedroom has been built with that in mind. Each floor plan has been designed with that in mind. So you will have a self-contained unit, we can call it a unit apartment, a studio, where you will have space for your bed. Depending on the layout, you may even have a little small table. You will have a kitchenette with a fridge, a sink, and a microwave, and an ensuite. So the concept is the same, but the layout and the rental return is very different. I would say the rental return with a brand new property will be much higher because the property is brand new. People prefer to live in a brand new home than to live into an older house where they have to share a bathroom.
What is actually possible and not possible when you're looking at financing a co-living property? Is this different from a traditional investment property or a traditional home? And if so, how do you guys deal with it?
Yes, that's correct, Yannick. The finance within the co-living space, it is a little bit more complex than a traditional finance if you were to buy a single-family home. The difference with us, with the Harmony Group, is that we only work with brokers that understand the complexity of co-living lending. So when it comes down to access, by using the Harmony Group, well, basically we give you access to some of the best brokers in the country that specialize in doing lending for co-living space. We also have access to some of the major 4 banks. So whatever is our clients need, we are certainly to find a solution.
If I'm trying to understand why I want you to help me with this versus just doing it myself, can you maybe take me through what you have that I could not have to help you pick the best possible?
In terms of research and data, we work with all the major data providers in the country. Just to name a few, that could be CoreLogic, could be ABS, Australian Bureau of Statistics, could be SQM. But I would say, Yannick, on top of that, I mean, the data is great, but on top of that, I think what is more important is the knowledge and the expertise that we have, because the reality is we are on the ground day in, day out. Okay, there is something that you as the consumer you cannot do. Okay, so we have that knowledge that we have by basically been in the industry for a very long time. I believe altogether we have over 100 years of experience in, in negotiating and property acquisition. So I believe that's what we bring to the table. We bring the experience that we have altogether, the ability to negotiate the best price for our client in today's market. And the reality is, look, we can basically help the client with any type of property, from single-family home to dual keys and co-living. But I would say dual keys and co-living, it is what we do day in and day out.